Hello and welcome to this audio edition of the Player Spotlight. I'm Tyler Rowland, and be sure to, before listening to this interview, be sure to click the subscribe button. It's at the bottom right of the YouTube screen. It'll really help us out with promoting athletes. And I want to introduce my guest, somebody that I've had the opportunity to call games for this year, and somebody who's been highly successful in the coaching profession, and right now is the postgraduate basketball coach at Hargrave Military Academy, getting ready to enter his second season, Ben Veshi. And Ben, it's good to have you on. And how have you been right now?
Tyler, I appreciate you having me on. This is it's a pleasure. Things are great right now down here in Chatham. The weather's starting to turn to some spring weather, so it's beautiful around campus, and we're putting the finishing touches on this year's team, and looking forward to next year.
Yeah, so let's recap your season a little bit. I mean, you once again finished had 33-11. Had a good year, and certainly, had a lot of good things happen this year, and have a lot of optimism for next season as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and this was it was an awesome first year. I'm really privileged to be sitting here as the head postgraduate basketball coach at Hargrave. I'm the 9th coach in program history, and I've had a lot of successful mentors come before me. My job now is to make sure I don't spill the milk at the table that's been set for me. And maybe if I can add a side dish or two, I'll try to do that. But Hargrave is such a special place for basketball and for everything else that comes with developing a young man. But specifically on the court, we had an awesome year this year. 33-11. We ended up going to the National Prep Championship Sweet 16. It's our 19th straight postseason berth. We also we won the first Piedmont over our rival Fork Union. The 33 wins ended up becoming our 13th straight season with 30-plus wins for the program. So, again, there's a significant tradition of winning at Hargrave, and I'm proud that our group was able to continue that in year one.
And that home court winning streak you have, and you picked up, I believe it was against Experience, yes, on December 12th against Experience Academy, 100th straight home win. And talk about just how special that is, because you just have so many good opponents that you play, and talk about just what that means, the opportunity to have that.
Absolutely. The historic Walter Davis Gymnasium, I always make sure I refer to it as historic Walter Davis Gymnasium. It's been really good to our program. We're currently sitting at 112 straight home wins. The previous record is 119. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a chance to break it again sometime in November or December, depending on how our schedule shakes out for next year. But that game against Experience Academy back in December to pick up win number 100 in a row at home was doubly special. Number one, just because it was our 100th straight home wins with a milestone achievement that this year's group got to be a part of to help cement their legacy. But it also happened during the Shooting for Success Classic, which is something that's really it's important to me that we do it here at Hargrave. We play the game at 10 a.m. and we invite local elementary students to come out. They're excited because they get to miss school. They just get to see high-flying dunks. And, they don't know who they're cheering for, but they're loud, and the gym is rocking. And, in order for them to come to the game, right, they have to achieve a certain number of AR reading points. And our guys go and do assemblies at these local elementary schools, and it's a beautiful piece of community outreach. And the reward for that is that we get a packed gym at 10 a.m. on a weekday right before we head out for Christmas break. So really special for our team to be a part of that, and again, from the years with Kevin Keats and A.W. Hamilton and then Lee Martin and Thomas Messenger, really the last 2 decades, I think you can count on one hand the number of home losses, truthfully. I believe we only have around 100 or so in program history since 1990-91, but very few of them inside historic Walter Davis Gymnasium. So I was really excited for our group. The game happened during a stretch where we weren't playing our best. We had some injuries, we had some illnesses on the team, and to turn around and have a 44-point victory in front of a packed crowd to win number 100 in a row at home was really special. And I think it really was a catalyst for our second semester success.
I remember coming up there the first time and just the goosebumps you get. And like I said, historic Walter Davis Gymnasium. And let's talk a little bit about coaching at Hargrave and describe coaching at Hargrave Military Academy. I mean, just, of course, the uniqueness of it, just given the tradition and everything with it, but also talk about postgraduate ball, because I think it takes a special mind and a special dedication to be able to do that, because you have to replace 12 guys each year practically.
Yeah, so actually, next year we're going to bring in 17. So 17 new faces. The only one that'll be sticking around is our student manager, Charlie Wall, and he's our biggest supporter. I'm glad that he's going to be back. I got him signed to a 2-year deal because he'll be a junior next year. So I'm excited to see him through graduation. He's awesome for our program. But to be honest with you, Tyler, when I got the call from Eric Peterson, our president, that I was going to be the one taking over for Tom Messenger after he departed for NJIT this past spring, it was a top 3 day in my life. Only wow. Behind obviously the birth of our daughter, who she's going to turn 1 on Saturday, so that was obviously a very special day, and then the day I married my wife. Those are very special days, but to be able to again, to be able to be the head coach at Hargrave Military Academy, it's honestly like being the coach of the Boston Celtics. It's a dream job, and because I'm at a position now, young enough in my coaching career to be able to obtain this dream job, right? It's about working every day to stay in that job. I never knew that continual hard work would lead to being in this position now. Following in the footsteps of those guys I mentioned before, right? Kevin Keats, the head coach at NC State, A.W. Hamilton, the head coach at Eastern Kentucky, Lee Martin, who's a top assistant at Ohio University, Tom Messenger, who's an assistant at NJIT, right? To be that next guy, I know I have big shoes to fill, so I'm thrilled for that challenge, right? And to be able to walk in the gym every day, right? My office overlooks our auxiliary gym, and you can walk by all the names of everyone that's played in our program beforehand, right? It's just the rich tradition of Hargrave is truly second to none. I know I'm a little biased because I'm the head coach here, but it's truly second to none, and it's an honor and a privilege to be the head coach here.
Let's talk a little bit about the life of a postgraduate coach. Of course, you guys play about 50 games a season, about closer to 50 probably. And you guys travel across the country, and talk a little bit about your off season and how that typically goes.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head with during the season. I do want to touch on that. I think all in this year, we between exhibitions and actual games, we took the court over 50 times this year. And with that came 30 nights in hotels. We went out to the Border League in October for a preseason event out in Las Vegas. which was a great experience for our team. Really helped us bond together as a group. But we played four exhibitions in 3 days out there with country travel. So, this off season, this being my first true off season as the head coach, it's a lot about making sure that our current roster finds their homes for next year. At the college level, and then filling our current our roster for next year. So it's a lot of time spent on the phone, a lot of time on Zoom calls or Google Meets, and then having guys come up on campus for visits. The way that the NCAA shifted the recruiting calendar, moving those AAU events, the live ones out into May and July, like. It actually helps our travel schedule a little bit better, right? We'll wrap up school for the year, and all of our guys are already departed campus, but the school year wraps up on May 18th, and that first live period weekend is May 17th, 18th, and 19th. So it actually works out that we'll be able to hit graduation and then go get on the road to go see some prospects live. See some guys that have currently committed, everything like that. So really our travel will ramp up in May and July. April and June has been typically a lot of on-campus visits, a lot of Zoom meetings. That is probably one of the biggest benefits in terms of recruiting is the ability to live stream almost every game, right? So you can watch people live from your own home. And then be able to get on Google Meets or Zoom calls with them, right, where you can go through a slide deck about our program and really, again, it doesn't replace a visit, but it does help with the process, right? It's another layer of communication. It's another opportunity for us to tell a young man and their family about what Hargrave's all about. The balancing of the military academics and basketball, and then see how they want to progress forward with an on-campus visit and then hopefully a commitment somewhere down the road. So the off season is fun. I got to be honest with you, and again, people will say I'm biased, but I'm truly blessed to have the staff that we have here at Hargrave. Just guys like John Mebane, who played here in 2017, 2018, coming back right after graduating college, coming back and working this year. Luke Rosinski, who he's a big, burly 6'8" dude, but he's got a heart of gold, and both of them are just absolute workhorses. They're on the phone 24/7. I swear they have more than one phone. They have to. That's the only way that they can keep up with all this volume. And then we got a guy like David Bentley, who's really good behind the scenes for us. He's a really connected guy. He helps bridge gaps, with AAU programs, with college coaches, with kids that we might not necessarily know about. David does a great job with finding those hidden gems. So I'm really fortunate to have the staff that we have here. Again, these guys don't work for me. I work with them. They work with me. And it's a really familial atmosphere. So it makes tackling the daunting challenge of replacing a new roster every off season, it makes it an enjoyable process. So I'm really thankful for those guys.
That's awesome. And that's so cool, just the way you compliment your staff like that. And let's talk a little bit about the life of a postgraduate student, because it's something, they're through high school, they're not yet in college. What is the academic routine typically for them? Do they take college classes or what's typically done in that regard?
Yeah, and you're exactly right. They've graduated high school, but they're not ready for college for whatever reason, right? Whether it's academically, physically, emotionally, whatever that reason is, right? What we do here is that we run our program as close to a Division I men's basketball program as we possibly can. right? And what that means is that our guys have to be able to balance all these different areas of their life, right? When you get to college, it's, making sure that you're in class on time, right? It's making sure that you can fit your meals in because you're going to have an individual workout, right? Or you might have film with an assistant, or you might have a lift. You got to go see the trainer, right? You got to get yourself mentally, physically, emotionally ready for practice every afternoon, right? And then after practice, you got to find time to eat dinner, and then you're going to have study hall as a freshman, right? And then you got to, the one component we don't really mimic is that social life, right? We don't really get to mimic that for our guys, but they learn how to balance all these different areas. So from an academic standpoint, our guys go to 6 classes a day, right? They're all, about 50 minutes long. 2 of those classes are considered what we call quote unquote basketball class, right? That's where we're doing our weightlifting, our individual skill work. During our season, we watch a lot of film with the guys, one-on-one or small groups, right? Like that time is all about them, right? Just like when you get to college, that individual workout time is all about your individual development within that team's framework, right? So with the other 4 classes, our guys take a series of different electives, right? We offer some dual enrollment college courses that are done through Richard Bland College, but right on our campus. So they can earn 14 credits between English and chemistry. We also have our guys take a class called speech, right, which is essentially public speaking for athletes, right? It's a beautiful thing to see guys that are maybe a little more soft-spoken, right, don't really like public speaking, to be able to come out of their shell, right, and be able to do these presentations and various speeches to learn how to speak properly, right? It's great timing for me to use this as an example with young men and their families, right? But, if you watch the Elite Eight this past year when Purdue played Tennessee, it was an awesome game. And, Zach Edey, I think he had like 40 and 20 or something like that. It was an awesome performance by the National Player of the Year. And, they put a microphone in front of his face on CBS and he dropped an F-bomb, right? And as a competitor, right, I understand exactly where he's coming from, right? But what our speech class does is it avoids moments like that for our guys, right? You hit a game winner and they put a microphone in front of your face. You got your emotions going everywhere. Your adrenaline's pumping and you have to sound educated, right? You have to sound eloquent. You have to sound as someone who represents more than just themselves in that moment, right? You represent your family, your team, your school, everyone that helped you to that point, right? So I'm not criticizing Zach Edey at all, right? Because that was a massive weight lifted off his and the rest of Purdue's shoulders. But it is a timely example for the merit of our speech class. And then our guys will take 1 or 2 other electives. The beauty of a postgraduate year, especially at a school like Hargrave where we have a really rich academic tradition, because they've graduated high school, as long as they're academically qualified, we do a lot of career exploration stuff, right? We have a lot of guys these days, we ask them what they want to study in college. They say business. I'm like, oh, okay, business is a very general field. Do you have any specific desire within that field? If not, maybe we can hook you up. Like we have a personal finance elective. We have an entrepreneurship elective, business math. We have anatomy and physiology. We can set our guys up with on-campus internships. Like we had a guy a couple years ago that really wanted to get into athletic training. So for one of his class blocks, he studied our athletic trainer, right? He followed him around. He helped him with little tasks that he could, but really it was about learning the ropes. It was about figuring out, is this a field I want to get into, right? So that, our guys kind of have a better idea heading into college, right? And it doesn't matter whether you know or not, right, coming in the door, but it does help, like Leland Coleman, for example, on this past year's team, he wanted to study engineering in college, right? So we hooked them up with an engineering course, right? Another couple of our guys wanted to do, pre-med and pre-law, right? We hooked them up with those classes so that they could kind of get a feel for that intro, that 101 course before they got to college, where there really wasn't any skin in the game yet. And I think that's been really beneficial because just like we operate on the basketball court, this is not a year of being lazy in the classroom, right? This is a year of getting those academic reps the same way you're getting those basketball reps, so that you are prepared for the rigors of being a college basketball player.
Yeah, and you want to talk about speaking that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that have changed with that, because everything now seems harder because universities are not as interested in. They're interested, but freshmen aren't necessarily their first priority now. And I know now, of course, it's all more important to separate yourself. And talk a little bit about the NIL and the transfer portal, because, Coach, it seems like, when you have one big change, that'll happen from time to time. But here you've got two big changes that have come through at about the same time, and you can tell everybody's still navigating. How has that impacted you as a postgraduate coach?
You're exactly right. One of those changes would have been enough. Both of them, frankly, flipped the sport on its head. And, I'm all for the players getting their just due. I do think that that's really important. And, I'm hoping that the NCAA will continue to work through the legislation as carefully as they can to implement some level of guardrails. But, between NIL, the transfer portal, and then honestly the COVID pandemic and all those guys getting waivers for an additional year, that's really impacted the timeline of how things work. This past year's group that we had, right? 3-4 years ago, Tyler, we've got probably 8 or 9 guys signed early, right? They're going to sign in that November period because college coaches see enough value in them at that time, right? We had one guy sign early this year. And that's not because we didn't have talented players. It's not that we didn't have Division I caliber players, but the game has changed in the regard of recruiting for high school kids happens earlier and earlier, I think. And then at a certain point, it just kind of stops because you're in that middle ground, right? You're 17, 18, 19. So schools aren't as interested in you than whether you were 15 and 16 because you have that long-term potential still there, right? That's why you see guys in the class of 2027 or 2028 picking up these Power 5 offers, right? Because you can see the potential there, right? Whereas, our guys, right, for the most part, they're at their floor, right? They are who they are. And then it's about, do they have enough of a ceiling? And what that's done is that the recruiting process has gone longer, right? Guys are still signing in June and July at these Division I schools, whether they're high school kids or portal kids, whatever it may be, right? Recruiting, again, the wise coaches would tell you that recruiting never stops, right? The reality is that now recruiting truthfully never stops. You're recruiting your own guys, you're recruiting the portal, you're recruiting high school kids, you're recruiting junior college kids, prep school kids, everyone. You have to keep tabs on everyone that is a potential prospect, right? And that's where the beauty of our program, right, is throughout all these changes, right, we are still producing Division I players and Division II full scholarship guys, right? We're producing college basketball players at at a consistent rate compared to pre-pandemic, pre-portal, pre-NIL, right? It takes longer, right? Like for some of our guys, right? Walt Andrews signed early, right? He's the only guy to sign in November on this year's team. Last year, under Tom Messenger, we went 44-2 and the number one team in the country, and we only had 2 guys sign early, right? And both of our teams, right, like last year's team ended up with 7 Division I guys with a couple other junior college kids that'll end up signing Division I scholarships, right? This current year's team, right, we currently have 3 Division I guys signed and sealed and delivered, in addition to another junior college kid who's going to go D1 after a year at JUCO. And then we still have 3 or 4 other guys that are starting to pick up their legitimate Division I interest, right? And the reason why that's important now is that the portal closes at midnight tonight, right? No new names will be in the transfer portal. So college coaches, right, they're going to shift more of their focus that they exclusively had on college transfers, not exclusively, but almost exclusively on college transfers since the portal opened until the portal closes. Now they're realizing that, they're not going to find what they need out of the portal to fill every hole in their roster, right? They're going to look at a high school kid that has a really high floor and a super high ceiling, right? That's the kind of kid that they want in their program, coming from a place like Hargrave, right? They know that our guys are prepared for college basketball, even coming in as freshmen, right? They might not play, but they're also not going to be – they're not going to go up there and get punked, right? They're going to go up there and they're going to challenge the grad transfers and the seniors and the juniors, for those minutes, and it's going to serve them better going forward, right? And, one of the things that I really do enjoy about watching our previous guys playing in college and going in the transfer portal is that the majority of them, right, when they do transfer, it's for the right reasons. You look at a guy like Mark Sears, who played here in 2019, 2020, and he goes to Ohio, has 2 really good years. Truthfully, I thought he was snubbed as MAC Player of the Year his sophomore year. Again, I'm biased because Mark's my guy, but he had an opportunity to go play at his dream school, the University of Alabama. I mean, who's anybody to say that you have to turn that down, right? That's the beauty of the transfer portal. And, he was able to do that, didn't have to sit a year. And then his second year at Alabama, what does he do? He leads the Crimson Tide to their first ever Final Four, right? But it was because he was prepared to play as a freshman coming out of Hargrave. So the NIL and transfer portal, it hasn't been all bad, right? But it has shifted, if nothing else, it shifted the timeline of how we have to operate.
Yeah, that's interesting and interesting here. It's fascinating to learn about all this with postgrad. And do you feel like as a whole with postgrad, how do you think the game is done as a whole in terms of its expansion? Because I'm from Eastern Kentucky, for example, and I had never really known of the concept of it until I came to Hargrave for that event, for the Relentless Hoops Military Circuit back in 2023. And I had to learn a lot about it myself. And now we have a team just across the river in Huntington, West Virginia for me. Do you feel like this is something that we're going to see more of?
Yeah, I do. Truthfully, a little bit about me, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I'm from Massachusetts, small town, and Massachusetts, Webster, just an hour southwest of Boston. And all I've known growing up is prep school, right? I grew up in New England, so the NEPSAC is really big for prep basketball. I was fortunate enough to play at Marionopolis Prep, where I was a member of 4 straight trips to the NEPSAC championship in our classification. So I to me, public school basketball was always foreign because I played private school. I played prep my whole life. And since I've been at Hargrave, right? So I got here in 2016. So just wrapped up my eighth year. I don't know if prep basketball has ever been better. Due in part to, the transfer portal, right? So more guys are, that are college caliber players are, for lack of a better term, being forced to play a prep year, to continue their growth, right? So the talent level has increased dramatically, right? And then you throw on top of the fact that there have been a lot of programs that have formed over the last decade, right? And not all of them do it the right way, unfortunately. So I do think that's where prep school gets a bit of a bad rap because there are some bad actors out there. But for the most part, right, like the ones that build correctly, right, it's truly amazing to see what they do, on that rising tide, right, it lifts all ships. And, again, we like a school like Putnam Science Academy, right, they are 15 minutes from where I grew up, right? Coach Espinoza, Coach Scraber, those are awesome dudes, right? I've known them for almost 20 years now. And when I was in high school, right, Putnam Science Academy was just kind of really getting going with their prep program. They were okay. Then they got a little bit better. Then, I remember coming back and coaching at my alma mater, and they had 6 Division I players, right? And then you fast forward to 2024. Well, they've played in 5 of the last 7 national prep championships, and they've won 4 of them, right? So they're very much like what I would consider a new blood, right, in prep basketball. Like you've got Brewster and St. Thomas More and Fork Union and Hargrave, right? Our programs are probably what I would consider the blue bloods of prep basketball. But the new bloods, right? And like schools like Combine Academy, who's in our elite prep league, right? Combine Academy really developed into something incredibly special, not just as a basketball program, but as a school, right? And they've parlayed that into being a real contender on the national scale. They went to the Final Four this past year. So like there's an increased level of talent, right? To where I would say that the programs that are growing and burgeoning within the landscape of prep basketball, right, more often than not, they're good for the game, right? Now, I can't say that all of them are, right, because there are some schools that, they say they're going to have a school in August, and then come October, they don't have a school anymore, right? And that's something that I think prep basketball needs to clean up. And obviously there's no czar, there's no real commissioner that can take that on. But, it's truly a privilege to be able to compete for a national prep championship every year because of the increased talent around the country, right? There are prep schools out in Missouri and Kansas, like Link Year Prep and Sunrise Christian, right, that have outstanding national level high school programs, but they also have these incredible postgrad programs that truthfully weren't really around about a decade ago, right? So now you have more, it's more of a national game, right? It's not just reserved to the Northeast and the East Coast. Now you have teams in Texas, you have teams in California, you have teams in Arizona, Washington, Oregon, right? To where like, it's truly a national championship now. And it's fun. And it's also challenging at the same time, right? We need to continue to do what we do well here at Hargrave, to be able to compete on that national scale with the burgeoning growth of prep basketball over the last decade.
Yes, and that's very well said, Coach. That's definitely a lot of growth, and it's exciting to see. And I agree with you about sometimes prep basketball getting a bad rap. my gosh, some of the experiences that I've had with them have been, phenomenal on this end. And, of course, a big part of that is, the opportunities at Hargrave Military Academy that have come up. And Coach, to get to know you a little bit better, what's your favorite music to listen to?
Oh man, that's actually an interesting question at this time. I mentioned earlier that I have a near 1-year-old daughter, and
mm-hmm.
it's funny how that kind of changes, what you're able to listen to. So I got to be honest with you, I've listened to a lot of Frank Sinatra this past year. It's easy
mm-hmm.
listening. It's music that I can play in the car with her. But I'm a man of all different music tastes, whether it's rap or country or classic rock, some blues, some oldies, whatever it is. I'm big on having music on. I'm normally a podcast guy, but again, I would say that currently Sinatra is a leader in the clubhouse.
And what's a cool fact about yourself? Last two questions. What's a cool fact about yourself that maybe something not a lot of people know?
I was actually an infinitely better baseball player than I ever was a basketball player. I was really fortunate to have played college basketball at Catawba College, a small Division II school in Salisbury, North Carolina. But my senior year of high school, I was team MVP of the baseball team. I had a 600 average. I swiped 37 bases, including a steal of home. And I was a young. My favorite player growing up outside of the Boston Red Sox was Jim Edmonds. So I felt like I was a young Jim Edmonds out there in center field. But yeah, I was a much better baseball player than I ever was a basketball player.
Wow. And last question, Coach, any shout outs you'd like to give?
I think I shouted out a lot of people during this time, and truthfully, they won't ever hear this, but I'd like to give a massive shout out to my parents and my sister back home in Massachusetts. They've been nothing but supportive of this journey. I grew up in Massachusetts, and my parents were very open to me heading down to North Carolina for college, and then I came home for about 8 months after college. I was a young 22-year-old in love, and my girlfriend, who's not my wife at the time, was down in North Carolina. So I moved back down here, didn't have a job. They supported me through that. They've come down to historic Walter Davis Gymnasium once a year. Every year I've been here to come watch a couple games. So I'm really fortunate to have that support system from day one at home. In addition to all the professional and personal contacts I've made along the way. A lot of people throw this phrase around lightly these days, but Tyler, I'm truly blessed to be where I am. I have incredible support, and I have a dream job here with an outstanding administration, and an infinite number of supporters that want to see us be successful and continue to be successful here at Hargrave. So to sum it up, I'm blessed, brother. I really am.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, we thank you for your time, and we want to say thank you all for tuning in and watching. Be sure to also check out Hargrave Military Academy's YouTube channel, Hargrave Video, and seen some games on there, and a lot of fun to watch. This team is. They play disciplined, and definitely Coach Veshi's done a great job out there, and we want to say thank you for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and God bless you, and we will see you soon. Good night, everybody.